So you're at the dealership. You're looking at that brand new car. You're thinking about the engine, the color, but what about the one thing you're going to spend all your time in? The seat. We're going to pull back the curtain and give you the real inside guide, the stuff the salesperson hopes you never ask about.
Does this feel a little too real? You spend thousands extra for the premium ventilated seat, only to feel, well, pretty much nothing. It's like, is this thing even on? Trust me, you're not alone. And that feeling is exactly why we need to dig a little deeper.
So that's the big question, isn't it? What's the difference between a genuinely good seat and a bunch of marketing fluff? We're going to break down what you're told versus what the engineers are tearing their hair out over. Let's get into it.
It always starts so innocently, right? You're talking to the salesperson and you say something that sounds totally reasonable. But what you're saying and what the engineering team is hearing, well, they are on two completely different planets.
Just look at this. This pretty much says it all. You think you're asking for a simple color swap, a tiny cosmetic change, but the engineer, oh man, they hear a catastrophic chain reaction. We're talking safety tests, durability tests, launch delays, the whole shebang. And this is not an exaggeration. This is their world.
So here's the first thing you have to understand. A car seat is not a piece of furniture. It's not a sofa you just plop into the car. It is a crazy, complex system. It's a safety device, legally part of the restraint system. It's an experience component dictating your comfort, and it has to comply with a mountain of regulations.
Okay, so let's get into why these simple requests become a full-blown crisis for the engineers. Why does asking for red thread cause so much panic? It really boils down to a couple of core, non-negotiable principles.
This analogy just hits the nail on the head. You wouldn't mess with a screw on a plane's wing while you're at 30,000 feet, right? It's the same idea here. You can't just swap out one part without understanding how it affects everything else, especially when you're talking about the violent forces of a car crash.
And this, right here, is the big one. Your car seat is a safety component. The frame, the headrest, even the fabric. It all has to work perfectly with the airbags. Change the thread, and maybe the side airbag doesn't deploy correctly. It's not just a bad design choice. It's a huge legal problem waiting to happen.
Okay, time for some insider lingo. Ever heard of the H-point? No? Well, it's basically the single most important point in your car's interior. It's your hip's pivot point. Engineers design the entire cabin around this one spot. Your view of the road, your reach to the wheel, and, critically, where you are in relation to the airbags. You change the foam by a few millimeters, you move the H-point, and suddenly the whole safety equation is off.
All right, so it's complicated, we get it. But what does that actually cost? I mean, in real money. Well, get ready, because these numbers for tiny changes are absolutely staggering.
Let's start small. Say a plastic cover on the side of the seat keeps getting kicked off during testing. The fix is a tiny adjustment to the mold it's made in. That tiny fix? It can easily cost around 50,000 yuan. That's over $7,000 US dollars for one piece of plastic.
And it gets so much worse. This is a true story. A supplier thought they were being helpful and swapped in a different kind of thread without telling anyone. That thread failed durability tests. The penalty for that helpful switch was a staggering 8 million yuan. That's over $1 million for thread.
And the consequences can spiral out of control. One car maker had to recall 120,000 vehicles. Why? Because the supplier changed the material of a single tiny bolt in the seat. One bolt led to 120,000 cars coming back to the dealership. Think about that.
This timeline really puts it all in perspective. If you catch a problem early, when it's just a design on a computer, the cost is what it is. But once the machinery is built, the cost shoots up 10 times. Once cars are actually being built, 50 times. And a recall after the car is sold, you're looking at 1,000 times the original cost. It's astronomical.
So now that you get the incredible stakes involved, let's arm you for the showroom floor. We are going to bust some of the most common myths a salesperson will throw at you so you can see right through the pitch.
Oh yeah, this is the classic. We've all done it. You sit in a car and you think, whoo, this is soft, it sinks right in, this must be luxury. And for the first 5 minutes, it feels great.
But for any drive longer than a trip to the grocery store, that thinking is completely, totally, 100% wrong. In fact, it's the exact opposite of what your body actually needs. Here's the real deal on comfort. Your body craves support, not just softness. When you sink into a seat, your posture goes out the window, and your spine gets tired and achy. Real long-distance comfort comes from firm, supportive foam that distributes your weight evenly. It's about ergonomics, not just feeling like you're on a cloud.
And here we are, back to our favorite myth, the simple color change. We saw what the engineer hears, but let's actually walk through what has to happen to make that simple change a reality.
So you want rad stitching? Okay. That kicks off a 6-week saga. First, the new thread has to be tested. Then, the sewing process has to be fine-tuned. Then, it has to go through weeks of durability testing. After that, you have to test the dyes for chemical emissions, and finally, about 8 different departments all have to sign off. So, yeah, real simple.
Okay, I know that was a ton of information, so let's boil it all down to a simple, powerful checklist that you can actually use the next time you're sitting in a car you might buy.
These are the questions that will stop a salesperson in their tracks. First, don't ask if it's soft. Ask about long-haul support. Second, question the fancy features. Ask how the ventilation works. Is it just a tiny fan or is there real engineering behind it? And finally, ask about safety. A salesperson who knows their stuff should be proud to tell you how the seat is part of a whole safety system.
If you remember one thing from all this, let it be this mantra. The fancy leather, the cool stitching, that's just the skin. The real value, the comfort, the safety, the stuff that actually matters, it's in the bones. It's in the steel frame, the engineered foam, and the thousands of decisions you can't even see.
So I'll just leave you with that. Next time you slide into a driver's seat, try to feel past the surface. Feel for the support holding you up. Think about the complex safety system you're sitting in, because now you know what's really going on under the leather.